Chris Mackowski of Emerging Civil War. I am with Greg Wade, the founder of the Franklin Civil War Roundtable, and we are at one of the most famous landmarks on the battlefield. And this is Carnton Plantation. And what an incredible success story this has been. Your first time here, you told me it was a barn.
That's correct.
Tell me about that.
Yeah, Chris, I had a house just not too far from here when I first moved to the area. And I was going for a run one day, and I thought, well, that's a nice looking old house there. I wonder what's going on, and I ran up, and it was being used as a barn. It had farm implements in it and hay bales. Fortunately, not long after that, some people got together and formed the Carnton Plantation Society, or whatever it was then, and that's ultimately how we saved it. We might not have had this house here today.
So now you have gone from being a curious visitor, curious bystander, to on the board.
That's correct.
So tell me a little bit about the organization that helps maintain this property.
Okay. Well, back until about 15 years ago, there were two different associations, the Carter House Board and the Carnton Board. Local folks decided that it would be more efficient and probably better for the long-term success of both houses to merge, at which time they did and formed the Battle of Franklin Trust. Battle of Franklin Trust manages this property and the Carter House property.
Okay.
That involves all the business end, the employees, and also the interpretation.
That makes a lot of sense, since you're not then competing for resources,
Correct.
but pooling efforts.
That's correct. And it's worked very well. These two sites have been very successful, especially relative to some of the other sites around the country. Good management here has really made this a success.
Now tell me a little bit, if someone comes to the plantation today, what do they find?
If someone comes here today, they will of course visit the visitor center with a small library, and then they have options of tours. And there are not only house tours, but there are other tours on grounds tours off site, battlefield campaign tours, for example, from like Spring Hill to Franklin. There's a wide variety of tours that can be found on the website.
So now the plantation here itself, once a barn, now beautiful shape as we're looking here. House tours, what do we get to see when we go inside the house for a house tour?
Well, it's part of a typical house tour. You'll see some pieces of furniture that are unique to the home, but you'll also see some different things that are unique to the actual story of the battle. For example, on the second floor, it was used as a operating room, and you could still see bloodstains on the floor, including footprints in the blood.
Oh, wow.
You will hear stories about the family, about the McGavick family, the folks that ran the farm. The McGavicks were a big name here in Middle Tennessee. One of the McGavicks was the mayor of Nashville. But it's a very comprehensive tour. The tour folks are really good, and there's a wide variety of tour options.
Now we're standing in what is actually the back of the house.
That's correct.
And I'll take some video and show people the front of the house too. But the reason we're here in front of the back of the house is because of the porch. And I haven't told Greg I'm going to do this, but I'm going to walk and talk for a second. He's going to follow me. But folks who know the story of Franklin know that after the battle, a number of the dead Confederate generals were actually lined up on this porch. And so it really kind of is a sad coda to the story of the battle. And Greg, you've spent time on the porch, you spent time with this story, and when you walk historic ground like this, and you stand in a historic spot like this, tell me what your reactions are when you have those sorts of moments.
Well, we were talking about this earlier. Generally, it comes at a time when you're not expecting it. But for example, I've been out here when the place is closed, maybe after hours, maybe as the sun goes down about the same time the battle started, and you wonder how in the world these guys, 18, 19, 20-year-olds, who had marched 20 miles that day, not only had fought the day before at Spring Hill and marched 20 miles, and then were put in line of attack here at Franklin, and then had to go in for another 2-mile brutal fight. Number one, physically, I don't know how you do that. Not to mention the fear and the threat of impending death. So that's one of the things that I'll always reflect on when I come out here. Like I said, when the sun's going down, when the battle would have started, is those people were different human beings than we are today. They were incredible people physically.
Yeah. Just imagine all that marching and the campaign to get them up here from Alabama and North Georgia, and just
Correct.
a grueling campaign to then come here at sundown on the 30th of November, 1864, and head into what you know is just going to be a terrible maelstrom. And you told me this story of two guys who actually come up out of a swale here on this property. Recount that story for me.
Yeah, I can't remember exact details, but there were a couple of soldiers that I found in a letter account who were on this part of the battlefield. And there's some low ground here right as you start approaching the federal lines. And as they came up the slope, one of them looked at the other one, and I paraphrase, but he said something like, "I don't feel too good about this." And the other guy said, "I don't either." And one of them didn't survive. So kind of a story just to relate what they were facing as they were heading into Franklin.
Just incredible stuff. So we're in the Carnton Plantation. I'm with Greg Wade of the Franklin Civil War Roundtable. Tour coming out here, so we're going to get out of the way. I'm Chris Mackowski for Emerging Civil War.